First, let's look at the ApiService, which is fundamental for transferring server-side fetched data to the client. We begin by importing Injectable to make our service injectable into other parts of our Angular application. We also import HttpClient, as this service will perform HTTP requests. Transfer state and make state key are critical for holding the state of the data during the transfer from server to client. We declare our ApiService as injectable with a provided in property set to root. This means that our service is a singleton and available throughout the app. Here we have the ApiService class with its constructor. The HTTP client is injected for making API calls, while transfer state is injected for handling the state transfer from server to client. Within the fetch data method, we create a state key for the data we're about to fetch. We then attempt to retrieve this data from the transfer state. If it exists, we can use it. Otherwise, we need to fetch it from the API. If the existing data is found in the state, we wrap it in an observable and return it. If not, we perform an HTTP GET call. Once we receive the data, we use the tap operator from RxJS to side effect the data received by setting it in the transfer state with our previously defined key. Moving on to the app server module, we import ing module from Angular core, which is necessary for defining an Angular module. We also import server module and server transfer state module from platform server, which are essential for server-side rendering and state transfer respectively. We also need to import our app module and app component so that this server-side module knows the core of our application and which component to bootstrap on the server side. We then declare the app server module using the ing module decorator, specifying our imports, which now includes the server transfer state module. This module handles the mechanics of transferring the state from server to client. We then indicate that app component is to be bootstrapped. Now let's take a look at the app component, which is responsible for displaying the data. We first import component and onInit, as well need to use the onInit lifecycle hook. We also import our ApiService to access the data fetching functionality. We define our app component with a selector and a simple template. This template uses Angular's ngIf structural directive to conditionally include a div element if the data is present. It then uses the JSON pipe to display the data. App component implements the onInit interface, which requires the onInit method. It has a data property which will hold the data we fetch. We inject the ApiService through the component's constructor. Within the onInit lifecycle hook, we call fetch data on our ApiService and subscribe to its resulting observable. When we receive the data, we assign it to the component's data property, making it accessible to our template for rendering.